I'll pick it up and
Al
get to the
Davis,
point.
when you
No,
were
no, no.
doing Monday nights, did
Oh,
you ever
I
cross
crossed
paths with him?
with him, and he was a little
Ornery?
yeah, listen, you don't. I didn't meet Rickles to have him be a love fest. You know, you want him to tear you a new one, and
Sure.
you want Al to be indifferent to you. So,
So he gave you
yeah,
what
it's
you
not
wanted?
like I meet Al Davis, and all of a sudden he comes out and he's Sandy Duncan. You know, he's Al Davis. He could care about you. He's sitting there in a Kevlar suit, like Tony Roberts and Annie Hall. You know, putting the visor down. I don't know what the whole deal's about.
Okay, that was a clip from what's that guy's name again on the NFL channel?
I think it's. I didn't hear the Q&A, but I thought it was Eisen.
Yes, it is. It is. But that was a way to talk about Monday Night Football, which I want to talk about, but I still want to go back and hear the Saturday Night Live because I just
let me wrap that up real quickly.
it was so interesting that you on this dinner that you went out.
Yeah. I do the audition, and the audition is you go up and it's in Times Square, sort of like an All That Jazz studio. You're looking down on the street level, and Lorne's there with everybody who works on the show, including prop master, all that, some friends. I think I remember Paul Simon being there, although it was such a blur, and Lorraine Newman, maybe. And you walk in, maybe 40 to 50 people, and he says, "This is Dennis Miller. He's a comedian. Dennis, you have 7 minutes." that's the setup. So I remember thinking, listen, brother, you know, do a couple New York jokes. Nice to be here. Do a couple. I had prepped a couple remarks about SNL. I couldn't remember what. And a couple basic jokes about coming in for the trip, flying in. And I do remember thinking, listen, this isn't about these jokes. This is a live TV show. This is an uncomfortable scenario. He knows that. He wants to see if you're going to sweat like Albert Brooks in broadcast news. You're going to be cool. Yeah. So I remember thinking, go out on your shield, brother. Don't flinch with this cat, because that's all he's looking for here. And I didn't. And I acted pretty good. And I think I started a joke at like the 6:45 mark, and then got to, you know, was self-possessed enough to get up to the 7-minute mark and go, "Oh, that's my 7. You don't really hear that joke anyway. Thanks for considering me." And why, you know, I remember thinking that was a cool move. And he says later on, they say, "Lorne wants you to have dinner with him." So I go to a restaurant in New York. Timmy, I'm on a complete bluff mode. I'm a Pittsburgh kid. I'm in LA, but
I just can't imagine what you're about to tell everybody. I'm trying to think if it was me. I don't think I could even walk in the restaurant.
I go in the restaurant. We go to the table. Jack Nicholson's there. He doesn't stay the whole time. He's had his meal, but he stays for coffee and dessert with us. And I remember thinking, this is Lorne's way of seeing if you're going to be an idiot if he puts you in this fast lane. I remember Aykroyd said once, there's a great excerpt in a book I read somewhere where Aykroyd and John are going to a party after SNL, and their parties at that time were the biggest social event in New York. Yeah. And it was very hot, and they went to a Midtown Watt for this party, and the girl had passed out in the heat of New York, and they were both stoned out of their mind, and they were cops there, and they didn't want to stop on the carpet, so they sort of traipsed around her and did, you know, like a little pirouette, a little ballet move, and kept moving up the thing, and somebody booed them for just going past the curve. Danny said, "If you can't handle a MiG, stay out of MiG Alley," which makes me laugh so hard. It's so Danny putting it in his cop military UFO type jargon. If you can't handle a MiG, stay out of MiG Alley. I remember thinking that way when I was in the audition. They want to see if you can handle MiG Alley. When I went there with Nichols, I just said, you don't want to gush. You don't want this will be over in a little bit. Just right. Smile and try to be cool. And I think that was the play. I don't think it was there to make you, make McMurphy laugh. It was for you not be composed that you're reading Jack Nicholson.
I think you handled it. Obviously, you handled it. I would have done something stupid like a mother-sister joke or something, some Chinatown, you know.
And then you don't get the show.
Yeah,
but I would have. I had every one of those instincts, Tim, but I grabbed my immature, needy self, throttled it, and threw it to the ground and said, "Shut up, brother. Try to sit here and act like you belong."
Yeah. Wow. Good for you. So let's talk about sports. I have all kinds of questions. One of the things Dennis and I have found playing golf is references to old athletes. We love throwing names at each other, but we could talk about the Monday Night Football. Let me ask one question about that.
You can ask whatever you want. I had a blast there, but I would have. Well, go ahead. You ask.
Well, I was just thinking again, this is sort of like Dinner with Nicholson. It's like now, but you've had so much success at this point. So I can't compare the nervousness, but you go on Monday Night Football. Was that like an overwhelming experience? Or was that
I'd never been to a football game. I'd watched it at home, but when you grew up in Pittsburgh, trust me, I have a vague memory that I might have been as a young boy, your earliest 5, 7 in there.
right?
I seem to remember being at Pitt Stadium for a football game, but I can't remember if it's University of Pittsburgh or the Steelers. They both played at the same place, but it was very cool. And I remember, so it's a untruth to say I had not been to a football game, but I hadn't been any time other than that.
Not as an adult.
Because the Steelers were, that's the sort of place where they will season tickets down to the next generation. It's like Lambeau trying to get in. It just closed, and I wasn't that big on being there live anyway because it always seemed cold, and our field was frozen all the time. So staying at home and watching on TV was fun enough for me. But as I auditioned, I remember I had a key. I don't know. We're going to run up against. I don't want to start this story. Should I hold it or not tell it?
Oh, go.
It's a story about the audition. I remember I met Al and Olmeyer out in North Hollywood at this big ADR stage. In retrospect, I think it was, where you looped, and they ran a football game, and Al and I faux announced it. And I was making Al laugh, but I hadn't had any sort of. I knew football, okay, but as much as the incredible Mr. Limpet can know, I'm not an athlete. Christ, I never got near. I was a bad athlete. But I watched a lot as a fan. I didn't know what a cover 2 was at that point, but you could study that. But I do remember they were the one team was on the 40-yard line, Tim. And I think this is the moment that might have got me the gig. They called a flea flicker where they fed into let's say they feed it to Lorenzo Neal into the middle of the one gap,
Right.
and he tosses it back to the quarterback.
Yes.
And he throws it down the field. They were on the other team's 40. So Al said to me, they run the flea flicker and it doesn't work. And he says, "What do you think of the flea flicker there, Dennis?" And I remember thinking, "Oh, jeez, I think I got a chance here." I said, "Al, I would run the flea flicker on the other 40 or deeper, because if they bite on it into the line, they can still get back. They've only got 40 yards to cover." I said that your guy can't run free Appaloosa way down the field because the field's tighter. So I don't get the flea flicker there as much as I would if they were way back, where the guy could just take off and you could throw it as long as you can and let Uncle Rico it and let him run under it. And I remember Olmeyer came up to me afterwards. He said, "Hey, I hadn't thought of that. That's a pretty good observation. I think I got it right there." I had fun doing it, but I do remember thinking I'm very whackable here. One, because I was the third guy in the booth. You only get a few seconds. And two, I was with Dan Fouts. Al's the greatest play-by-play guy of his generation, maybe ever. And, I'd put him up there with Ray Scott, Kirk Gowdy, and Al. And then there's Foutsy, who's the menchiest of all football players. They toss it to you. And I remember at the beginning being trapped in this thing where I thought, I don't want to zing every time, because then you become like, get away from me, like brushing a fly away from your ear. But they were testing you, like, what does he have to say here? And I thought, geez, I've got to say something, or they could go with a 2-man booth.
Yeah.
I got trapped in that for a while. And I remember it took me a while to break through that. I did 2 years there, but then I remember when Madden left Fox, I called Foutsy that morning, and Foutsy's way off the grid. He's like in Green Acres where you got to climb the pole to pick up the phone. He's up there in Oregon. And I go, "Hey, listen, we're getting whacked today." And he said, "What do you mean?" "We just signed for a third year. Our contract was for a third year." And he said, I said, "Madden just left Fox, and he's not leaving Fox to, sit in the Dakota with his old lady drinking frappuccinos all day. I think we're gone." And sure enough, Alex calls me later. He said, "I just got it," and I said, "Well, my phone's ringing," so I pick it up. It's Howard Katz, and they're letting you go. And I just remember thinking, "Well, just tell me what corner you want me on when you whack me like G. Gordon Liddy, because I don't want innocents getting caught in the strafe or something." And I had a fun 2 years there, but it's an awkward fit to have three men in a booth, and the third one is not a football player. You have to remember that the third man in the booth, in essence, with Gifford, Cosell, and Dandy was Dandy. And
Right.
Dandy threw for over 25,000 yards. He had his nose broken like so many times. He was great at it. Cosell was obviously a rare avis, a broadcaster like no other. It's like you're booking Dave Garroway or something, that an all-time broadcaster. But when the third guy is just a stand-up comedian, it puts him in an odd place. So, you think, should I do that joke? You've got 5 seconds.
Right.
And there were times as I look back, it looked a little posed, like I would think of jokes beforehand and think I should insert that there. And that's sort of deadly. But like I said, I got picked up after the first year, which meant a lot to me. Had the second year, was in contract for the third. But I also thought, I don't know if this is going to fit.
Well, but what an incredible, again, I go back, there's a kid from Pittsburgh who is selling jokes for $20 and you end up on Monday Night Football. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it's pretty crazy great.
Well, Tim, when you're in that booth the first night, Paul Tagliabue's over your shoulder. He's like tapping on his shoulders. I'm not going to say shoulder rubbing, but because he's sort of stiff, but he hits me on the shoulder. He's like, "Let's have a good one, kid." And you're standing there next to Al Michaels and Dan Fouts in Canton at the Hall of Fame game, and you hear on your headphones, dun 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 dun,
Right.
and I'm thinking, "Oh my
What did I
God,
do?
I wonder if I should tell anybody I've never been to a game." And then in the first period, I remember Kevin
That would have
Falk.
been a good opener. Hey, I've never seen a football game before.
Well, I've
great.
seen them all. I just hadn't attended. But I remember Kevin Falk for the New England Patriots. Al says Falk had minor groin surgery in the off season, and I said, Al, anytime they're near your genitals with a scalpel, it's not minor. And the next day, people were pissed, and I thought, see, that's a pretty good score for
It's
me.
a great show.
Yeah, I don't quite know if this is going to work.
We got to take our third break, and we're oh my God, I have so much to talk to you about that we're not going to get to, but that's cool. Because this has been really fun. Been talking to Dennis Miller. I'm going to plug Sprung one more time on Amazon Freebie if you haven't seen it. It's a really fun show.
Great show, folks. And this is one of the funniest men I know, and also one of the most decent. So give Sprung a tumble because I love it.
Back at you. And so we're going to take a break. I'm talking to Dennis Miller, and you're listening to It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack.